I'm Amber Henderson, 32, the one who clawed her way up from community college to senior financial analyst. The responsible daughter. The one who's bailed out my family more times than I can count. When Dad called saying Christmas was canceled because they were too broke, I believed him. So I spent December 25th alone with microwave leftovers while scrolling through Instagram. That's when I saw it, my sister Madison's live stream. The lavish family party. Everyone laughing. Everyone there. Except me. Before I continue this story, where are you watching from? Drop a comment below, hit subscribe, and let's talk about what family really means. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio. We weren't rich, but we weren't struggling either, at least not until I was 14. That's when Dad lost his job at the manufacturing plant where he'd worked for nearly 2 decades. He'd always been charismatic, the life of every party, but terrible with money. Mom, always his biggest supporter, never challenged his spending habits. Even when the credit card bills piled up, she'd just say, "Your father works hard. He deserves nice things." After Dad lost his job, our financial situation spiraled quickly. The nice house with the backyard where we used to have barbecues? Gone within 8 months. We moved to a cramped apartment across town, and suddenly I was the poor kid at school. But while my parents floundered, I adapted. At 16, I got my first job at a local grocery store, working evenings and weekends while maintaining my GPA. My siblings handled things differently. Madison, for years younger than me, became obsessed with appearances. She'd rather starve than admit we couldn't afford the right clothes. Even at 12, she was calculating which friends had pools, whose parents bought the good snacks, and who could get her access to the life she felt she deserved. She learned to weaponize her prettiness, her charm. People wanted to give Madison things, it was her superpower. Jason, my brother, was caught in the middle. 2 years younger than me, he was old enough to remember the good times, but too young to find practical solutions. He followed Dad's lead. Charm your way through problems, never let them see you sweat, and eventually, someone will bail you out. That someone usually turned out to be me. By the time I graduated high school, I'd saved enough for community college. I transferred to Ohio State after 2 years, working full-time while taking classes. I remember calling home during my final semester, excited about a job interview. Mom sounded distracted. "That's nice, honey, but can you send a little money this month? The landlord's threatening to evict us." That was the first time I sent money home, $600 I'd been saving for a professional wardrobe. It wouldn't be the last. Every crisis in my family somehow became my responsibility to fix. Dad's car broke down? Amber will help. Madison needs prom expenses? Ask Amber. Mom's medical bills? Amber's got it covered. After college, I landed an entry-level position at a financial services firm. The irony wasn't lost on me advising others on wealth management while my own family leaked money like a sieve. But I was good at my job. Really good. I advanced quickly, each promotion bringing a bigger paycheck and more requests from my family. Last Thanksgiving was typical. I flew home, bringing a gourmet turkey and all the fixings. I spent over $300 on groceries alone, not counting the gifts I'd brought everyone. Dad proudly announced he'd be cooking, then disappeared to watch football. Mom and Madison criticized everything from the brand of cranberry sauce I'd bought to how I'd arranged the table. Jason showed up 3 hours late, grabbed a plate, and barely spoke. After dinner, while I was washing dishes, Dad sidled up next to me. "Princess, I hate to ask, but the property tax is due next month." I wrote him a check for $2,200 before flying home the next day. A week later, Madison posted photos of her new designer purse on Instagram. When I called to ask about it, she snapped, "God, Amber, are you keeping tabs on everything I buy now? It was on sale, and I've been saving forever. Why do you have to be so controlling?" Despite everything, I still loved them. They were my family. I kept telling myself they'd change, that one day they'd see how much I'd sacrificed. Maybe they'd even pay me back someday. 3 months ago, I received a substantial promotion. Senior financial analyst, with a 40% salary increase. I made the mistake of mentioning it during a family video call. Dad's eyes lit up in a way I recognized all too well. Madison immediately started talking about a family vacation to celebrate. Mom mentioned remodeling the kitchen. I changed the subject, but the damage was done. The frequency of emergency requests increased dramatically. Jason's car needed repairs. Madison's rent was late. Dad had unexpected medical bills, though he refused to provide any documentation when I asked. Each time, I reluctantly transferred the money. Each time, I swore it would be the last. But family is family, right? You don't turn your back on blood. At least, that's what I kept telling myself, even as my resentment grew alongside my bank statements. And then came Christmas, the final straw that would break not just this camel's back, but the entire foundation of what I thought family meant. The call came exactly 2 days before Christmas. I was at my desk, finishing up work before the holiday break, when Dad's name flashed on my phone screen. I answered with my usual, "Hey, Dad, what's up?" Already, I was bracing myself for whatever financial request would follow. But this time, his voice sounded different, subdued, almost embarrassed. "Amber, sweetheart, I've got some bad news." My stomach tightened. In our family, bad news usually meant financial disaster. "What's going on?" "We're going to have to cancel Christmas this year." His voice cracked convincingly. "The heating system went out last week, cost us nearly $3,000 to fix. Then the car needed new brakes. We're tapped out, honey." In the background, I could hear Mom's theatrical sniffling. Dad continued, "We can't even afford a proper dinner, let alone gifts. Your mother's heartbroken. She was so looking forward to having everyone together." I immediately offered what I always offered. "I can help, Dad. I can transfer some money right now." No, he interrupted, suddenly noble. "We can't keep taking from you. You've done enough. We'll figure something out for January, maybe have a belated celebration." Mom got on the phone then, her voice wavering. "We feel terrible, Amber. It's just that we don't want you to see the house like this. No decorations, no tree. We're eating frozen lasagna for Christmas dinner." She gave a little sob. "It's so embarrassing." Madison apparently grabbed the phone next. "This totally sucks," she whined. "I was coming home from Atlanta specifically for this. Now, I don't even know what I'm going to do." Jason didn't speak to me directly, but I heard him in the background saying something about, "At least we'll all be miserable together." Something felt off about the whole conversation, but I pushed my suspicions aside. After all, these were my parents, my siblings. Why would they lie about something like this? "Are you sure I can't help?" I asked again. I was looking forward to seeing everyone. "Absolutely not," Dad said firmly. "You enjoy your holiday. We'll FaceTime on Christmas Day, okay? Love you, Princess." After hanging up, I sat at my desk feeling deflated. I'd taken 3 days off work specifically to fly home. I had already shipped presents to their house, expensive ones, carefully chosen for each family member. Now I was facing a solo Christmas in my apartment, with no decorations and no plans. I called the airline to cancel my flight, losing most of the fare due to the last-minute change. Then I texted a few friends to see if anyone had room for one more at their holiday gatherings, but everyone was either traveling or had firm plans already. That evening, I wandered through the grocery store, filling my basket with a sad assortment of single-serving holiday foods, a small ham steak, instant mashed potatoes, a slice of pumpkin pie from the bakery section. The cashier gave me a sympathetic smile as she bagged my items. "Spending the holiday alone?" I nodded, not trusting myself to speak without my voice cracking. Back in my apartment, I half-heartedly hung some lights around my living room window and set up a small tabletop Christmas tree I found on clearance. Throughout the evening, my phone pinged with messages from my family. From Dad, "Missing you already, Princess. Christmas won't be the same without you." From Mom, just put the lasagna in the freezer. Too sad to even look at it now. From Madison, this is literally the worst Christmas ever. Hashtag familyless, hashtag depressed. From Jason, wish you were here. House feels empty. I responded to each with supportive, loving messages. I told them I was fine, that we'd celebrate together soon. I even sent a picture of my pathetic little tree with a joke about it being Charlie Brown approved. That night, I lay awake in bed, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. Yes, I was going to be alone for Christmas, but at least I wouldn't have to deal with the usual family drama. No walking on eggshells around Dad's financial troubles. No mediating between Madison and Mom. No covering for Jason when he inevitably showed up late or not at all. Maybe, I thought as I finally drifted off to sleep, a quiet Christmas by myself was exactly what I needed. I had no idea that in less than 48 hours, my entire understanding of my family would be shattered beyond repair. Christmas Eve arrived with a light dusting of snow outside my window, picture perfect, like a scene from a holiday card. For everyone else in the world, it seemed to whisper promises of cozy gatherings and joyful celebrations. For me, it just made my apartment feel colder somehow. I spent the morning cleaning, more to keep busy than out of necessity. Around noon, I heated up some leftover Chinese takeout and settled on the couch to watch It's a Wonderful Life. The irony wasn't lost on me as I watched George Bailey learn how much he meant to Bedford Falls. Would anyone's life be significantly worse if I disappeared? Or would my family just find someone else to fund their lifestyle? My phone chimed with a video call request from my college roommate, Laura. Merry Christmas Eve, she beamed when I answered. Behind her, I could see a beautifully decorated living room with a massive tree. I thought you were going home today? Change of plans, I explained, recounting my family's financial woes and canceled Christmas. So here I am, having a glamorous celebration for one. Laura frowned. That's weird. I could have sworn I saw Madison post something about heading home for the holidays this morning. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? On Instagram. She posted from the airport, something about home for the holidays. I just assumed you were both going to your parents. Maybe she's going to a friend's place, I said, but a seed of doubt had been planted. Dad said they canceled everything. Laura shrugged. Probably. Hey, why don't you come over tomorrow? We're having people over for dinner around 4. I thanked her but declined, claiming I had already made other plans. The truth was, I didn't want to be anyone's charity case, the sad friend who got invited at the last minute. After we hung up, I sat staring at my phone for several minutes before opening Instagram. I rarely checked social media these days, too busy with work and too tired of seeing Madison's carefully curated life of apparent glamour that I knew was largely funded by my financial support. Madison's story was right at the top of my feed. I tapped it, and my heart sank as I watched her pan around an airport terminal. Heading home for Christmas. Can't wait to see everyone. Hashtag family time, hashtag holiday magic. The timestamp showed it had been posted just this morning. Confused and increasingly suspicious, I went to her profile and scrolled through her recent posts. Nothing unusual there, just the typical fashion shots and motivational quotes. But something compelled me to check her tagged photos. Third photo down, posted by our cousin Rachel, Madison, clearly at our parents' house, decorating an enormous Christmas tree. The caption read, "Early Christmas prep with the fam. Going to be epic this year. Hashtag Henderson Family Christmas." The post was dated December 20th. 2 days before my father called to cancel Christmas. My hands shaking, I navigated to my father's Facebook page. He rarely posted, but there it was, a public event titled Henderson Family Christmas Extravaganza, scheduled for December 25th at their house. The description boasted about a catered dinner, an open bar, and even a professional DJ. The guest list included over 30 people. My name was conspicuously absent. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. They hadn't canceled Christmas. They had simply canceled me. In a daze, I kept scrolling through social media, gathering evidence like a detective building a case. There was Jason, posting about picking up rented tables and chairs. Mom, sharing recipes and decoration ideas in a family group I'd somehow been excluded from. And then at 9:42 p.m. on Christmas Eve, Madison went live on Instagram. I watched, unable to look away, as she toured our parents' house. The place was transformed. Twinkling lights everywhere, a massive tree drowning in ornaments, tables laden with gourmet food. In the background, people laughed and chatted, glasses of champagne in hand. I recognized aunts, uncles, cousins, family, friends, everyone was there. Everyone except me. We're just getting started. Madison squealed into the camera. Dad hired a DJ this year, and wait until you see this champagne tower at midnight. The camera panned to our father, dapper in a new suit I'd never seen before, demonstrating some ridiculous dance move to the delight of the crowd. Mom stood nearby in an elegant dress, arranging an elaborate charcuterie board. Best Christmas ever, Madison continued. And look at all these presents. The camera swung to show a mountain of beautifully wrapped gifts beneath the tree. I spotted several with tags that I could just make out: my aunt's name, my cousins, even the next-door neighbors. Then I heard it, a comment from someone off camera. Thank God we didn't have to invite Amber this year. She's such a buzzkill, Madison giggled. I know, right? Always lecturing about money and responsibility. So boring. My father's voice joined in. To be fair, she's useful when the bills come due. More laughter. My mother shushing them, but laughing too. I closed the app, my vision blurred with tears. The leftover Chinese food congealed on the coffee table before me. On TV, George Bailey was running through the streets of Bedford Falls, joyfully shouting, "Merry Christmas" to everyone he passed. I turned it off and sat in the dark of my apartment, the only light coming from my pathetic little Christmas tree and the soft glow of my phone as notification after notification rolled in from Madison's continuing live stream. I'd never felt so utterly alone, so completely betrayed. All those years of sacrifice, of putting my family first, of believing we were in this together despite their flaws, it had all been a lie. They hadn't excluded me because they were too poor to host Christmas. They had excluded me because they didn't want me there. I was good enough to fund their lifestyle, but not good enough to share in their joy. The revelation crashed over me in waves, each one more painful than the last. I curled up on my couch, hugging a pillow to my chest as if it could somehow fill the gaping hole where my heart used to be. Outside, the snow continued to fall, coating the world in pristine white. Inside, my world had turned to ash. The hours after discovering my family's betrayal passed in a blur. I cycled through emotions like changing TV channels. Shock gave way to disbelief, then anger, then a bone-deep sadness that made it hard to breathe. By midnight, I'd settled into a cold, calm clarity that was somehow worse than all the rest. I pulled out my laptop and opened a folder I'd created years ago labeled Family Finances. Inside was a meticulous spreadsheet detailing every cent I'd given my family since college. Each entry included the date, amount, stated purpose, and notes about any promises of repayment, promises that were never kept. The numbers were staggering. In the past year alone, I had sent them $27,836. Emergency car repairs that mysteriously occurred monthly. Medical bills with no documentation. Rent assistance that somehow never resolved their housing insecurity. Madison's business expenses for her fledgling influencer career. Jason's temporary support between jobs that had stretched for years. And what had I received in return? Exclusion. Mockery. The designation of family ATM rather than family member. I scrolled through old family photos on my phone, looking for clues I might have missed. There they were, subtle signs of gatherings I hadn't been invited to. A family dinner at a restaurant I recognized as expensive. Madison wearing a dress that still had tags in a photo where she claimed to be shopping. My parents in the background of a cousin's birthday party I'd been told was just a small thing, not worth traveling for. The patterns were unmistakable now that I was looking for them. For years, they had been living a double life, presenting themselves to me as struggling and in need of support, while using my money to fund a lifestyle they deliberately excluded me from enjoying. I checked social media again, this time looking beyond the recent posts. There was evidence everywhere. A weekend trip to Miami 3 months ago that coincided with Dad telling me he needed money for property taxes. A spa day for Mom and Madison when they'd claimed to be too broke to even buy groceries. A new gaming system in the background of Jason's selfie taken the week after I'd helped him with overdue utility bills. The betrayal cut deeper with each discovery. These weren't just white lies or exaggerations. This was a systematic campaign of deception orchestrated by the people I should have been able to trust most in the world. At exactly midnight, as I sat surrounded by digital evidence of years of manipulation, my phone buzzed with a text from my father. "Princess, hate to ask on Christmas, but our rent check bounced. Landlord's threatening eviction. Can you send $3,800 first thing tomorrow? We'll pay you back next month for sure. Love you." The casual tone, the endearment, the obvious lie, it was all so familiar. But now I saw it for what it was. Emotional manipulation designed to extract money. There was no bounce check. There was no eviction threat. There was just a family that had become so accustomed to using me that they didn't even see me as a person anymore. Something hardened inside me as I stared at that message. The last thread of familial obligation snapped. I wasn't a daughter or a sister to them. I was a resource to be exploited. And resources can be depleted, accounts can be closed, wells can run dry. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for only a moment before I typed my reply. Lose my number? I don't fund liars. I hit send, then immediately blocked his number. One by one, I blocked every member of my family on my phone. Then I moved to social media, removing and blocking them from every platform. Email filters were set up to automatically delete anything from their addresses. With each digital severing, I felt a strange mix of grief and liberation. These were people I had loved unconditionally for decades, people whose approval I had desperately sought through financial sacrifice. Cutting them off felt like amputating a limb, painful but necessary to prevent the infection from spreading further. The last thing I did before going to bed was log into my online banking. I canceled all recurring transfers to my family members. I removed them as authorized users on my credit card accounts. I closed the joint account I'd opened with my father for emergencies only. Then I drafted an email to my bank's fraud department explaining that any future requests for money transfers to these specific individuals should be denied, regardless of the stated emergency. As I finally crawled into bed at 3 a.m. on Christmas morning, my phone already vibrating with calls from unknown numbers, likely other family members being enlisted to reach me, I felt something unexpected. Peace. For the first time in my adult life, I was putting myself first. The weight of responsibility for people who took advantage of me was lifting. The constant anxiety about the next financial emergency was fading. Tomorrow would bring consequences. There would be anger, guilt-tripping, perhaps even threats. But tonight, as snow fell softly outside my window and the rest of the world celebrated with their loved ones, I celebrated something different. The first step toward freedom from toxic obligations disguised as family love. I fell asleep with tears on my face, but determination in my heart. The Amber who would wake up tomorrow would be different, stronger, wiser, and no longer available for exploitation. I woke early on Christmas morning, not to presents and pancakes, but to a sense of grim resolve. The brief peace I'd felt before falling asleep had hardened into determination. This wasn't a rash decision made in anger. This was the culmination of years of being used and taken for granted. Today would be different. Today, I would systematically disentangle myself from the financial web my family had spun around me. I started with my phone, which had been buzzing nonstop since my text to Dad. I silenced all notifications and reinforced the blocks I'd placed last night, adding additional family members and family friends who might be recruited as flying monkeys in this drama. Next came email. I created detailed filters to automatically archive messages from anyone in my family or their close associates. No more guilt-laden subject lines appearing in my inbox. No more financial sob stories disguised as casual check-ins. With a cup of coffee beside me, I opened my laptop and began the more complex process of financial separation. First, I logged into PayPal and removed all saved connections to family members. The transaction history made my stomach turn. Weekly transfers, sometimes multiple times per week, almost entirely one-directional, from me to them. Venmo showed a similar pattern. I deleted the app from my phone entirely. I called my credit card companies and removed all authorized users. When the customer service representative asked if there was a problem, I simply said, "Yes, but it's being resolved now." The joint checking account I'd opened with my father for emergencies was next. I transferred the balance, -$1, into my personal account, then placed a freeze on the joint account. Let him explain to the bank why all those automatic payments were suddenly bouncing. As I worked, my phone continued to light up with calls and texts from unknown numbers. Family members trying different phones, likely becoming increasingly desperate as they realized the seriousness of my actions. I ignored them all. By noon, I had systematically cut every financial tie I could think of. Then I remembered I was still the co-signer on Madison's car loan and Jason's apartment lease. I couldn't remove myself from these obligations immediately, but I could document my intention to do so at the earliest opportunity. I drafted letters to both the auto finance company and the property management company, explaining that I would not be renewing my guarantor status when the current terms expired. While writing these letters, a thought struck me. I'd been so focused on the financial aspects of the separation that I hadn't fully processed the emotional betrayal. I opened a new document and began typing a different kind of record. A detailed account of every instance I could remember where my family had lied to me, used me, or excluded me while benefiting from my support. This wasn't for them to read, it was for me. A reminder, if my resolve ever weakened, of why this separation was necessary. The list grew quickly. Birthdays where my gifts to them were lavish, but theirs to me were afterthoughts, if they remembered at all. Holidays where I flew home bearing presents and food, only to be criticized or ignored. Emergencies that mysteriously coincided with luxury purchases. The constant refrain of "we'll pay you back" that never materialized. And now, the ultimate betrayal, the elaborate Christmas celebration I'd been deliberately excluded from, even as they planned to ask me for yet more money. As the document grew, so did my anger, but also my certainty. This wasn't just about money, it was about respect, honesty, and reciprocity, all of which had been conspicuously absent from my family relationships. By mid-afternoon, my phone had nearly vibrated itself off the table with incoming messages. I decided to check just once to see what they were saying. The texts ranged from confused to desperate to threatening. From an unknown number, likely Madison, "WTF Amber? Dad's freaking out. What did you do?" From another unknown number, probably Jason, "You need to call home right now. This isn't funny." From Mom's work phone, Amber Grace Henderson, "You call me this instant. Your father is beside himself. How could you do this on Christmas?" From Dad's friend Bill, "Your dad asked me to reach out. There seems to be some misunderstanding about the family finances. Please call him back." From Aunt Susan, "Your parents are very upset. Whatever the problem is, I'm sure we can work it out as a family." Not one message contained an apology. Not one acknowledged the hurt they had caused or the years of exploitation. They were only concerned with the sudden halt of their funding source. I turned my phone off completely and sat in the quiet of my apartment. For the first time in years, I felt truly in control of my own life. The sensation was both terrifying and exhilarating. As darkness fell on Christmas Day, I ordered Chinese takeout, a real meal this time, not leftovers, and ate it while watching a movie that had nothing to do with holidays or families. I opened the single present under my sad little tree, a pair of earrings I'd bought myself months ago and forgotten about. They were beautiful. I put them on and took a selfie, then deleted the social media apps before I could be tempted to post it. This moment wasn't for show, it was just for me. Before going to bed, I created a new spreadsheet, this one tracking the money I would save each month by no longer supporting my family. Next to it, I started a list of things I'd always wanted to do but couldn't afford because my extra income was always diverted to family emergencies. Travel to Japan, take sommelier classes, invest in my retirement account, maybe even buy a home of my own. For the first time in my adult life, my financial future belonged entirely to me. The thought was simultaneously liberating and terrifying. Who was I, if not the responsible daughter who sacrificed for her family? I wasn't sure yet, but I was finally free to find out. As I drifted off to sleep, my last thought was that families were supposed to help you become your best self, not drain you until there was nothing left. Tomorrow would bring more fallout, more attempts to pull me back into their orbit. But tonight, on a Christmas that had begun with betrayal and loneliness, I had given myself the greatest gift possible: freedom. The display on my phone read 7:48 a.m. when I finally turned it back on. Immediately, it began vibrating continuously as notifications flooded in. 55 missed calls, 37 text messages, 19 voicemails, 4 emails that had somehow bypassed my filters. My family had been busy. I took a deep breath and decided to listen to the voicemails, starting from the earliest ones. The first few were angry. Dad's voice, tight with indignation. "Amber, what the hell do you think you're doing? Call me back immediately." Mom, tearful but accusatory. "How could you do this to your father? After everything we've done for you." Madison, practically screeching. "You are such a drama queen. Just because you weren't invited to one party? Grow up." As the timestamps progressed, the tone changed. The anger gave way to confusion, then to panic as they realized the extent of what I'd done. Dad again. "Look, Princess, if this is about the Christmas party, there's a perfectly reasonable explanation. Call me back so we can discuss this like adults." "Mom, Amber, please. Your father is very upset. Whatever you think happened, I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding." Jason, finally making an appearance. "Sis, you need to call. Things are getting weird here. Dad's talking about having to sell the car." Then came the calls from extended family and family friends, clearly recruited to pressure me. Aunt Susan, Uncle Mike, Dad's golf buddies, Mom's book club friends. All with variations on the same message. Your parents are worried. Family disagreements shouldn't involve money. You're being unreasonable. The final voicemail, left at 3:26 a.m., was from my father. His voice was unrecognizable, hoarse, desperate, defeated. "Amber, please, call us. We need you." That was it. No explanations, no apologies, just raw need. 6 months ago, that message would have had me reaching for my phone, ready to solve whatever crisis they'd created. Today, it only strengthened my resolve. I deleted all the voicemails and turned to the texts. Most echoed the voicemails: anger, denial, gaslighting, then desperation. But one from Jason, sent at 2:14 a.m., caught my attention. "I don't blame you for being pissed. What they did was messed up. But you should know that things are bad here. Really bad. Dad took out a second mortgage 3 months ago to pay for Madison's influencer launch party in Miami. The Christmas party was on credit cards. They've been lying to everyone, not just you. I didn't know how bad it was until tonight. They're completely broke, Amber. Like, might lose the house broke." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me felt vindicated. The financial house of cards was finally collapsing. Another part felt a twisted kind of pity. They'd created this situation themselves, systematically alienating the one person who had consistently bailed them out. As I scrolled through the remaining messages, a fuller picture emerged. According to various family members, my parents had been telling different stories about me for years. To some, I was the ungrateful daughter who had abandoned the family after becoming successful. To others, I was the troubled child who needed financial support due to poor life choices. Ironically, the money was flowing in the opposite direction. To others still, I was so busy with my high-powered career that I simply couldn't make time for family gatherings I was never invited to. The web of lies was so intricate, so calculated, that it left me breathless. This wasn't just financial exploitation, it was character assassination designed to justify their behavior to others and to themselves. I closed the messaging app and opened my email. Bypassing the desperate pleas from family members, I focused on one from my therapist, responding to my late-night message requesting an emergency session. I can see you today at 11 a.m. if that works. What you're describing sounds like a significant boundary enforcement with your family of origin. These are often the hardest boundaries to set, but sometimes the most necessary. We'll talk through it when I see you. I confirmed the appointment, then made myself breakfast, real breakfast, not just coffee and anxiety. As I ate, I allowed myself to fully feel the complex emotions swirling within me: sadness for the family I thought I had, anger at the betrayal, fear about the confrontations that would inevitably come, but underneath it all, a growing sense of peace about my decision. At my therapy session, Dr. Mitchell listened attentively as I recounted the events of the past 24 hours. "What you've discovered," she said when I finished, "is that you've been in a codependent relationship with your entire family. They created emergencies, you rescued them. They made poor choices, you suffered the consequences. They lied, you accepted the lies because the truth was too painful to acknowledge. So what happens now?" I asked. "That depends on what you want," she replied. "Cutting financial ties is a good first step, but the emotional work is just beginning. Your family will escalate before they accept the new reality. They'll try guilt, anger, manipulation, involving others, anything to get you back into the role you've always played. The question is, are you prepared for that?" I thought about it, about the decades of manipulation and the freedom I'd felt last night making plans for my own future. "Yes," I said finally. "I'm ready to find out who I am without them draining me dry." As I left her office, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was my cousin Rachel. "Just heard what happened. For what it's worth, I've always thought they treated you terribly. If you need someone to talk to who actually understands what they're like, I'm here." It was the first message that didn't demand anything from me: no money, no explanation, no immediate reconciliation. Just simple support. I saved her number but didn't respond yet. I needed time to figure out which relationships were worth preserving and which were collateral damage in this necessary separation. Back at my apartment, I made a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching people return from their Christmas celebrations. Families unloading presents from cars. Couples walking hand in hand. Normal holiday scenes that highlighted the abnormality of my own situation. But for the first time, the sight didn't fill me with longing or inadequacy. Instead, I felt something like hope. Hope that someday I might build genuine connections with people who valued me for myself, not for what I could give them. My phone buzzed again. I glanced at it, another unknown number, another family member trying to reach me. I turned it face down without checking the message. They would keep calling. They would keep texting. They would try every avenue to regain access to their favorite ATM. But the Amber who automatically responded to their every crisis no longer existed. In her place was someone stronger, someone who finally understood her own worth. Outside, snow began to fall again, covering yesterday's tracks with a clean, white blanket. It felt like a metaphor for my life, a fresh start, unmarked by old patterns and obligations. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but today, this strange, painful, liberating day, had brought me something invaluable, the first page of a new chapter entirely my own. One month after Christmas, I stood in the center of my apartment, barely recognizing the space around me. Gone was the generic furniture I'd chosen for its practicality rather than style. Gone were the bare walls and minimal decorations, the hallmarks of someone who viewed their home as just a place to sleep between work shifts and family emergencies. In their place was a space that felt wholly mine. Rich blue paint on the accent wall. Art I'd carefully selected because it spoke to me, not because it was on sale. Bookshelves filled with volumes I'd always wanted to read, but never had time for. A new couch that was chosen for comfort rather than durability. Plants, actual living things I had committed to nurturing. My phone rang, displaying my therapist's office number. Unlike family calls, which I still sent straight to voicemail, I answered this one. "Just confirming your appointment for tomorrow at 4, the receptionist said. "I'll be there," I replied. These weekly sessions had become a cornerstone of my new life. Dr. Mitchell had helped me navigate the aftermath of my family separation with steady guidance and unwavering support. The fallout had been exactly as she'd predicted. After the initial shock and desperate attempts to contact me, my family had cycled through various strategies to regain control. First came the flying monkeys, distant relatives and family friends calling to tell me how devastated my parents were, how Madison had cried for days, how Jason was worried about my mental health. These calls were easy to deflect once I realized they were based on false narratives my family had created. Then came the public smear campaign. Madison, in particular, had taken to social media with vague posts about toxic people who abandon family and the pain of betrayal. I'd blocked her accounts, but screenshots found their way to me through well-meaning acquaintances. I deleted them without response. The financial consequences hit my family hard and fast. Without my regular infusions of cash, their precarious house of cards collapsed within weeks. Jason texted from a new number to let me know Dad had to sell his car and Mom had taken a retail job. Madison had moved back home after being evicted from her apartment. The second mortgage was in default. I felt guilty at first, responsible for their hardship. Dr. Mitchell helped me see that I hadn't created their financial problems, I had simply stopped solving them. There's a world of difference between pushing someone off a cliff and refusing to catch them when they jump deliberately. After setting up my new apartment, I'd opened a separate savings account labeled Family Bailout Fund. Into it, I deposited the exact amounts I would have sent to my family each month. After just 4 weeks, the balance was already substantial, a stark reminder of how much I'd been giving away. But this money wasn't for them. This was for me. For the trip to Japan I'd booked for spring, for the sommelier classes I'd started taking on Wednesday evenings, for the down payment on a condo I was considering. I'd also started building new relationships and strengthening old ones that had withered while I was consumed with family drama. Laura and I had dinner weekly now. I'd joined a hiking group that met on Saturdays. I'd even been on 2 dates with Mark, a kind-eyed accountant I'd met at a work function, the first dating I'd done in years. The buzzer rang, interrupting my thoughts. I opened the door to find my cousin Rachel standing there with a bottle of wine. "Hope it's okay that I stopped by," she said, looking uncertain. I was in the neighborhood. Rachel was the only family member I'd cautiously allowed back into my life. Her message on Christmas Day had been the sole expression of support among dozens of demands and accusations. When I finally responded weeks later, our conversation revealed that she'd experienced similar exploitation from the family, though on a smaller scale than mine. "Of course," I said, ushering her in. "I was just admiring my new decor." She whistled as she looked around. "Amber, this place is gorgeous. It actually looks like you now." "What do you mean?" "It has personality. Warmth. The old apartment was so beige. Like you were afraid to take up space even in your own home." Her observation hit me with unexpected force. She was right. I'd been living a beige existence, not just in my apartment, but in every aspect of my life. Always accommodating, never demanding, careful not to inconvenience anyone with my own needs or desires. As we settled on my new couch with glasses of wine, Rachel handed me an envelope. "This came to the house for you." I thought it might be important. It was a letter from Jason, handwritten on notebook paper. Unlike the manipulative messages from my parents or Madison's dramatic social media posts, this was simple and straightforward. "Amber, I owe you an apology. Actually, about 1,000 apologies, but this is a start. I've been thinking a lot about how we treated you over the years. It wasn't right. You were generous, and we were selfish. You were honest, and we lied to you constantly. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that at least one person in this family recognizes what we did to you and is genuinely sorry for it. I'm trying to get my life together now. Got a real job. Moved out of the parents' house into a place I can actually afford. It's nothing fancy, but it's mine and I pay for it myself. If you ever want to talk, my number is below. If not, I understand. Either way, thank you for everything you did for us, even though we didn't deserve it. Jason." I folded the letter carefully and set it aside, unsure how to feel. It seemed genuine, but years of manipulation had made me wary of apparently sincere communications from family members. "He's actually doing it," Rachel said. "Working at that auto shop across town. Has a tiny studio apartment. Hasn't asked your parents for money once since Christmas. And the others?" I couldn't help asking. Rachel sighed. "Uncle Robert and Aunt Karen are still in denial. They've told everyone who'll listen that you had some kind of breakdown. Madison's working at a department store makeup counter and hating every minute of it. The house is going into foreclosure next month." I waited for the wave of guilt, the urge to swoop in and fix everything. It didn't come. Instead, I felt a calm detachment, sympathy without responsibility. "I'm not going to rescue them," I said, testing how the words felt in my mouth. "Nor should you," Rachel replied firmly. "They need to figure this out on their own." We spent the rest of the evening talking about everything but family drama, her new job, my travel plans, a documentary we'd both watched. It felt normal, healthy. As she was leaving, she hugged me tightly. "I'm proud of you, you know. What you did took incredible courage." After she left, I sat with Jason's letter for a long time, contemplating whether to respond. Eventually, I drafted a short text. "Jason, I got your letter. I appreciate the apology. I'm not ready for contact with the family, but I'm glad to hear you're doing better. Take care of yourself." I didn't send it immediately, saving it to review in my next therapy session. There was no rush. For the first time in my life, I was moving at my own pace, making decisions based on my needs rather than others' demands. That night, as I prepared for bed in my transformed apartment, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back at me seemed different somehow. Standing straighter, eyes clearer, face more relaxed. I realized I was seeing myself without the weight of toxic obligation pressing down on my shoulders. The journey wasn't over. There would be more difficult days ahead, more attempts by my family to pull me back into old patterns, more moments of doubt. But I had taken the hardest step, recognizing that love shouldn't deplete you, that family is defined by mutual respect and support, not by blood or obligation. As I turned out the lights, I thought about all the people watching this video who might be struggling with similar situations, giving endlessly to people who take without gratitude, sacrificing their own needs for those who never reciprocate, trapped in cycles of emotional and financial exploitation disguised as family duty. To them, I would say this: you deserve reciprocity. You deserve honesty. You deserve to be valued for who you are, not just what you can provide. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary for genuine relationships to flourish. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. Leave a comment about your own experiences with family boundaries, what worked, what didn't, how you found the courage to put yourself first. Subscribe if you'd like more stories about finding strength in difficult situations. Thank you for listening to my journey. Remember, The family you choose can be more nurturing than the family you were born into. The hardest decisions often lead to the most necessary growth. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to stop enabling destructive patterns and start building something healthier in their place.